Ooh. Hey, what's up, everyone? First stream in a while. Gonna kick it off with some ultimate golf content here. We're gonna be using the guide for Ultimate Golf app. Let me make sure I am up to date. I'm gonna double check that. I am not. I've been using another device for this. I'm breaking open the phone here. Take a look at the settings. Looks like I'm good. So what's up, guys? I see a few guys in here already. This is the new cut for this app. It's going to really primarily focus on helping guys who are maxed and have been maxed for a while. So a lot of the clubs, let me see if I can switch my bag around a little bit. That looks pretty good. Let me test the ring span, make sure it's shifting. I think that's right. Trying to remember some of this data. 11.2, that sounds right. So you can see some of the effects of the changes here. That one I'm not sure about. 10.7, does that sound right? $38.6, $36.2, it's got to be right. So it is based on the club below. I'm assuming the space, very small space there. So that's good. So you can see I'm just kind of working through things here. Basically, this is one of the biggest changes is essentially, whatever power ball you use, whatever settings you put in, it's basically going to fix the ring span, and it's also going to give, a good estimate for min, good estimate for max. However, that min value, it's very dependent upon the min updating. So you can see the ring span, 16 rings for this. Pretty good estimate for that. And you also see, as the power ball goes down, the span's going to go down, which is very similar to what you guys experience in game. However, I'm assuming most of you, especially tournament players, you're playing with +7 balls, you're playing with +10% balls. So you're essentially focused on, a span like this. And these changes, they're not live yet for everybody, but they are live for, they will be live for essentially max play. Like think max clubs only. So, and the only exception would be like Hellfire 5, Hellfire 6, Hellfire 7, stuff like that. So you'll see just a little bit of tweaks with the way that the rings play. Now let me get this set up here. I'm gonna put pop-up view here. I see a couple of you guys already in here. I've been just kind of slowly going over this. Are you guys able to hear me okay? If you guys could add something to the chat, somebody that's in here, I see there's 4 people. just so I can know, that everything's working right. I expected to see, comments coming in. And I was going to do like a question and answer section. So if you guys do have question and answers, no matter what they are, I'll essentially, try my best to take care of those for you guys during this session. Other than that, we're just going to be doing some playthroughs. So let me just get this box just a little bit larger. Might just shrink it down just a touch. I know the wind starts to come into scope. But if there's anybody out there, I see there's only 4 or 5 guys in here. If one of you could just, post something just so I can make sure that I can actually read the comment section, that would be great. But, here we are with the, you can see kind of the club selection that I have at this point. It's close to max-ish clubs. I really haven't played much in the last couple months. I've just been super busy. Like, I cannot play this game even weekly. I haven't seen Bay Hill yet. I haven't seen Prince's yet. I haven't seen, what's the other course that came out? Prince's, Bay Hill. There was another 9 in the last span, I feel, that came out. I also haven't seen that one. So a decent amount of new holes for me. I did enter this Water Worlds. And let me see if I can go in here and do a restore. That did not do what it was supposed to. That's the reason I don't use this device much. So I had it working here on this. Let me just put it in expand view again real quick. Just try to get this working correctly. Something's a little wonky here. Yeah, I was about to say there it is, but well, either way, we watch the ad. It's a little bit hard with my subscription level. It creates a extra layer of issues because I have to be able to test ads. I have to be able to test the non-ads. So I do think that, it causes an additional layer of problems that the typical user doesn't have to deal with. Hey, what's up, guys? I see we got about 10 users in here. If somebody out there, if they could just, drop a comment in the chats. I just want to make sure that I can read what's going on. I haven't had issues in this in the past, but, I'm definitely not seeing, here we go. There we go. Now I'm seeing some things. Perfect. Yeah, so the new updates, it's pretty much only going to be for Max Club users. Realistically, everybody else, they have a pretty good estimation in their app because I had so many bags coming up. I had so many different bags and setting types that I was able to test a lot of the, generic coming up clubs. One thing that I didn't have a lot of the max bags. I didn't have a lot of the Tour 7s at all. I still really don't because I'm not playing this game quite actively enough. But let's go in. We'll do some holes. If you guys have some questions, feel free to fire them into the chat. Now I can see your guys' comments. apparently you guys were talking, and for whatever reason, I needed to kind of touch the comment button to trigger it. But if you guys do have some questions, I'll try to take questions as we do this. We're going to focus primarily on this Water World quarterfinals, and also keep in mind that we have some new changes coming towards max club bag. So I'm going to go out here. Oh, you know what? I should have thought of this. So if I'm having issues with my subscription, I'm going to have to watch another ad for meshes. So let's pop out here real quick. Let me just work through this. Pop-up view. We should be good to go. You guys still chatting out there? Because I am not. There we go. There we go. Yeah, so I can see you guys, but I can't tell if they're changing the way that the comments work. It's almost like I have to go to the chat first to be able to. It's like I have to keep toggling that. So the update, it's going to become live within a week. So not sure if I'm coming back to Golf Clash. One of the biggest reasons why, I can tell you, right off the bat, it's a problem that I, told you guys in the past. They don't let you play tournaments in low levels. Like my accounts, they're in beginner or amateur. They don't take highest level priority. So I'm not going to play Golf Clash for the next 10 weeks just to get my accounts up. So, even if I was going to play, it would be very casually. I'm just a little bit too big. I'm even too busy for this game. But yeah, that's essentially the requirement that I would need at bare minimum, would be able to essentially have, because even here on Ultimate Golf, I think I'm either in beginner or amateur 1, but they're letting me play with the Tour Pros. So that's kind of like priority 1 for what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and activate this Golf Trainer app. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. Not seeing my grid pop up. Is there a reason? Is this a streaming thing? Is that why it doesn't pop up? I mean, I can go no grid, but that's not what I had expected on the table here. So here my device, it's I feel like this has to be another change with the way live streaming works or something, because I'm not able to access my grid at all, which is okay. I don't need to play with a grid. A lot of the top players, they also don't need to play with a grid. There's a specific mark on my screen that I adjust to. It's kind of, so I'm kind of pointing at it right now. It's like right in here. Like I can just visualize, like I already know where it is. It's like right in here. And then that's going to be essentially where long iron picks up. So if I was to shorten this down kind of like this. And I usually play this pretty close to 1 per ring. So let me just come over to the side here. And we'll go right around here. 1 per ring. You see, I'm not using really fancy. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I can hear it trying to activate, and then it wasn't activating. So I'm not sure why. Like as soon as I hear it's vibrating, like it's acknowledging, but it's not actually doing it for whatever reason, and I don't know why. So it's something apparently I have to look into. But like I was mentioning, I essentially kind of know on screen. This is kind of what I was mentioning, is I was essentially trying to go for a distance that would put me right in long iron range, which is what it did. I just didn't expect a straight tailwind. The tailwind's going to actually take me out of this club. Like I'm not even going to be able to do this for this shot. I didn't expect, 8 downwind. So essentially, this is almost a wash. I almost need a re-tee for this. I'm trying to think. So I can open up. Bigfoot. Here's the one thing that's critical. So this is actually a good teachable moment, is you actually have to go into our app, switch to Orion. Very significant that you do that. When you do that, what should happen is you're going to see the ring span. It's going to open up. So when I go here to ring span, instead of it being 10.7, you see it opens up to 21.7. And it's just going to do it by default. Hold on real quick. Just give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. So the one thing I like about this game, for sure, the fact that they did this new update where you can change your bag live. That's awesome. I remember testing this out when it came out. Of course, is this? I'm assuming this is Bay Hill. It kind of reminds me of that course. So let's see, here's 5 rings. You can see that that's about where the pin is. This is about 7 rings. So 7 rings. Let me see if I can toggle the chat real quick. Obviously, you guys can see we're having a little bit of difficulties. So nobody mentioned anything yet. But that was what, 7 rings? And that looks about good. My game knowledge here for this is weaker than it used to be, a lot weaker. So the biggest thing will be my ball guide. I don't understand why that keeps popping and open. So if that's like 7.5 rings, I know there's going to be some ball guide expansion, but I'm going to pull down into the water. This is going to be an interesting adjustment, I can tell you. I'm still going to use okay. So the Ultimate Golf Trainer, that's just my YouTube channel. That's essentially the picture that I use for my YouTube channel. That's all that is. So if I do 7.5, and then you see I'm going to just kind of mimic the wind. 8.4. It's going to give me a pretty good solid estimation. So 7.1 here. Of course, there's going to be a significant amount of expansion that happens in a tailwind this large. 8 wind is very large. And one of the things I'm going to do, you're going to see I'm going to use... This is going to be a shout out for all the users saying how I'm sure you've seen it in some of the groups just saying about how you need grids to play well. This is actually going to be kind of proof that you don't. However, with that being said, I'm probably not going to make anything. And the reason being why is this is like my first round in 2-3 months. I've just been tied up. But the biggest error is essentially my, essentially just ball guide deflection. I'm just not up to speed with what needs to be done, you know, with those little micro adjustments. Now, what I do know about this game is pulling down into the water, definitely going to make you pull into lower ground. This is going to land at least a ring short. So I need to pull this straight up. So that's what you see that I'm doing. I'm kind of pulling this straight true north, and then I'm just going to pull up a ring. And the only reason that you have to do that is because of pulling down into the water. So if you would have been on level ground, omit this step altogether. Great shot. I'm hoping that doesn't register great. Doesn't look like it did. My timing was pretty good. As you can see what I'm doing, I'm landing it on the front. The only thing I didn't do was pull up quite enough. So you can see it was right on line, even with the effect, everything. When I did that ring pull, I just needed to pull up just a tad bit more. It was probably 0.2 rings. So it's like, that's the difference between what these great players are doing versus the average guy. And of course, the guy that has no clue, they won't even be able to, you know, be even to, you know, that level to where it's 850 on the tail, like on a wind like that. So that's kind of the, you know, the subtle differences that you should be looking for and shooting for. Well, I was hoping. Let me see. There used to be. Oh, I can see I'm red. I'm not sure why. So apparently I have maybe not the greatest connection here. Sorry about that. Not sure what's causing it. I'm not even really sure how to repair it. But let's take a look at this hole. Sometimes I can get this one down to wedge. Not really a possibility here. Why don't we, for this one, try to use, you know, I'm going to try to just go through a variety of balls. And, you know, I haven't touched this account in months, so they're kind of all over the place with what I have. I know to get up to wedge range, I need to be able to get it to essentially the halfway point on my screen. So in terms of pointing, I need to be able to roll it out to here. All right, cool, thanks, appreciate that. So if I can get up to here, I can probably get the wedge. Now, the only exception is going to be if it's going to be like wind straight in the face. So I don't know if I can get the wedge. This is kind of like a gamble. But I'm just playing the percentage on my screen as like a guesstimation. One thing I do know is tailwinds are favorable. They usually expand. So this is like an uphill fairway shot. You'll actually see, I'm sure most of you know, you've probably driven this green. All you need is a tailwind. Pretty much the only thing you're looking for here is the tailwind. But I knew I was going to be close to hive, and as you can see, I'm spot on. Without a grid, without, you know, any additional resources, like I just knew I could get here just based on just analyzing from full, and that's the way that I do it, is essentially I go out full like this, and usually I have the lines on the screen, but I just kind of memorized where they are. So once I can see that essentially I'm at the halfway point on my screen, I know that this is where max hive is. And you can see this is exactly what I'm showing you here, is the pin's in the center of the screen, and I'm there. So that's how I knew to go for that distance, because I wanted to get up here to be able to go for this. Now, the one thing I know about uphill shots, and you'll see when I do this, that it's going to be uphill. You can see that the pin is above my feet. You can see almost all of the fairway leading up to the hole. That means no matter what, I'm going to have to go a little bit over adjust, because it's basically what happens is the ball trajectory is raising for this game, and it just causes the ball to go a little bit more than it would otherwise. So if this is my max line and I'm pulling back a little, I might actually just go max. I might just stick to max here, because even though I've pulled down a little bit, what's going to happen is, because the ball went to higher ground, since it's shooting up to a higher target, it might go a little bit more than it would otherwise. So with that being said, let's kind of, just push this through and just see what we're looking at. Of course, I don't use wind direction on my hive, but I will essentially just use the 100% adjust. I know 9.3 is very close. If I knew nothing, I know that. So essentially max is going to be close here. Let's pull off just a tad. You can see what I'm doing is just kind of getting the ball guide to kind of almost be like a stop shot, because that's kind of the way that I want the ball to come in. I don't really need it to backspin to go in. This is a tough wind to do that, but I'm going to use very close to the 9.3 value. So 9.3, we're going to use, let's just use this as the button here. And of course, realistically, I don't even have to use this, but the reason that I am is just to kind of make it easier for you guys visually to be able to see, oh, okay, that's where 5 rings is for him. And then he's going to go, was it 9.3? Yeah. And I think 9.3 is actually going to be a pretty solid adjustment here. There won't be much ball guide expansion, but because of the uphill nature, that's the reason that I'm going that little bit of extra. And because I'm essentially maybe like 93% club, for example. And technically you should measure, but the reason I know that that's going to be very close, in fact I made it, is just because of the fact that it's uphill. I didn't expect to make it. Of course, it did go in. It was probably the easiest win, because I didn't have to worry too much about ball guide deflection. That's probably my weakest point right now, just because I just haven't been playing in months at this point. So the weakest part of my game is going to be ball guide deflection. I didn't have to worry about ball guide deflection there. So that made that, a lot easier of a shot than it would have been otherwise. So let's see here where we are. This says long iron here. So, this is almost an obvious no-brain decision here. Anytime that Bigfoot goes out of range, you just switch to lightning rod. Of course, I got to make the exact same change. And of course, I'll have to go to my bag setup. Wait, is this? So I'm back in the sub. This is what I was telling you, how crazy my app works. And it's because I'm in both. So it really just makes mine like dysfunctional. The average user is not in both. But the fact when you are in both, you're in the free version, you're in the main version, simultaneously, you can see the result. It just causes my device to just be the craziest thing that you've ever witnessed. So here what we're doing is we're noticing that there's a tailwind, but I'm also going to be pulling into the sand. I think it's a little bit low ground, which might cause this to land a little bit short. So I need to consider that in some fashion. I either need to change my spin to make it a little bit more through the hole, or I would have to do essentially like What you saw, the mistake that I made on one, I need to kind of do some iteration of that. So I either need to change my spin to make it a little bit more overspin, or I need to push straight up at the end. And this time I'm just going to go a little bit more upspin. And they're essentially equivalent. You just have to know how to switch between the two. But what we're going to do is for pretty much all the main clubs, I'm always, and you can see I'm right at the max line. We're going to do this. It doesn't really change the adjustment too much, 0.1 rings. So very small between plus 10, plus 7. And of course, pulling down into the bunker, I'm thinking I might just slightly underpull. Slightly, because of the lower target. So 10-7 in the ballpark. Of course, I also have to keep in mind, here's the other factor. I don't have full backspin on, and this adjustment assumes full backspin. So since I'm not going full backspin, it's going to roll out and have more wind effect to the left. So I might actually have to stick with this 10-8-4. It actually might be pretty close to this that it's giving me. And of course, you know, the more fine-tuned that you want to get with that, I'm going to pull the first time, you know, I'm going to kind of use that, I'm going to use that white line as kind of my indicator. I'm just going to pull down to it for that first 0.8. And then I'll zoom out and we'll do 10 straight up. Just trying to make it easy for you guys to see my movement, because this is an important concept. I am definitely a little bit worried about how far I pulled down into the sand, though. You can see it's much lower ground. I'm worried this might come up just a touch bit short, but with the tailwind, hopefully it, and of course, experience is going to always trump. I hope that's not a great ball. It was a little early on that release. Let's see if it, yeah, it looks good. We're good. But, yep, it was right in between that, it's right where I was debating, 10-7, 10-8. But this is where kind of like your game knowledge overtakes, because it's like after you've seen that enough times, or if you go back a second time, and if you get a similar wind, you're going to know, oh, I just need to underpull this just slightly. But also keep in mind, you know, I've played probably 12 holes on this game in the last 2 months. So, but it's just, you know, really my schedule more than anything. I haven't really been playing much, a lot of anything. If anything, I just try to do a hole or two. Just, you know, throughout the day, because my work schedule's just been definitely a little bit overwhelming. And here we're seeing a par 5. I remember this one from, well, real life. I've never played Bay Hill, so I don't know if I have to. I can kind of maybe use the shot to try to figure out what my distance is going to be. This makes me believe that we're going to be wood-ish lightning rod. Yep, nope. No problem, Bruce. Glad to put this together just to kind of go over some things. And if you guys do have questions, feel free to write them. I don't have to just play. You know, we can take a 2-minute break, and I can essentially walk you guys through some questions that you have, even if it's not adjustment based. It could be anything involving this app, whether it's the wind calculator or setting up your bag, setting up your clubs. You know, the differences in the balls, or, you know, meshes. I can essentially just work with you guys through some things. if you guys need that assistance. Now, I'm assuming on a tee shot like this, you should probably switch to barchetta, but I'm a little too lazy to do that, so we're just going to go straight with the fusion here. I'm assuming we're going to be maybe long iron range, but when I mean long iron, I mean probably lightning rod. If I get to long iron range, it's probably going to be the lightning rod. Yep. And you could just figure that out just by, like I mentioned, go to the full zoom, and you could just kind of size the screen up. This is a perfect example. You can just see one full screen for me is lightning rod 7. So I just know if I can get it in one full screen from full zoom, I know I'm at lightning rod range. And that's the only reason that I even have any clue the distance, because I've never, ever played this hole on this game. So, very first time, I'm going to try to stay away from this hill if I can, because you can see this is like a death trap. So, you need to find something that is a little bit more consistent, kind of like down here. So, this is what I'm going to try to do, because it's not changing my ball guide. So if I can do something more like this, that's what we're going to do. A little bit of a tailwind. Let's go right here. Same similar concept as last time that we were talking about on the last shot as to why I kind of need to overpull. If anything, this time, though, I'm pulling to higher ground. So since I'm pulling to higher ground, it's going to require a significant adjustment. So you see 1009 here, that's going to be light because my spin, instead of it being full back, it's a little bit of top spin. So I know 10.09, it's going to be light even at the max adjustment. Yeah, so this upgrade, yes, exactly. So that was the purpose of this upgrade. You'll see here, this is a perfect example. You're going to see that I already have default. And the only reason that this is even possible is because I know that the club below you is, Orion 10, for example. So that is the key, is you do have to keep these consistent. So let me just switch this back up. This is a perfect example of a good time to do this. So let me switch this back to Spectra. You saw that it said 79 there. So I'm switching this one, and then I need to also switch the app, which is underneath here. So we'll go back here. We'll go back to the Spectra, back into the wind calculator. And we'll just do this. Let me just show you the ring span has automatically modified itself. We are very close to the max line. I think we're not quite. You do have to keep in mind, there's a little bit of feel involved. Regardless if I'm at the max span or not, I just know that 10 is light. And the reason I know that is because I'm not using full backspin. I'm using a little bit of topspin. This needs to be at least 10-1, 10-2, and we talked about that with the other adjustment, but you can see how it just slightly modifies things. Just slightly with the ring span. So, but I also need to go to the plus 10. Here's the 10-14. So that's good there. But like I mentioned, I even know that this, even though I'm not at max, it's still going to be light. So, and I'm not too hardcore about getting this perfect. I'm more about just teaching you guys the concepts. You guys can do the fine tuning on your own. Like I was mentioning, 10-2, 10-3, it's going to be right in there. You can see the biggest thing I didn't have, but you also saw that it was just going to slightly roll out to the left. It just needed a touch more. And the fine-tuning just comes from repetition more than anything. The first time I ever played this hole, and I still knew within, .2 rings, what was going to happen. And that's the reason that you saw, if you guys saw the boss battle, the way that those guys just were able to basically just nail that course the first time. It's game knowledge. It's not course. You don't need course knowledge. It's irrelevant. Of course, yes, it's going to take your game to the next level. Instead of them shooting, 32s or 31s, or they'll be shooting, 35s, 36s in 100 attempts on the same setup. So let's see what we're at here. So it looks like maybe if I blast this, I'll be able to get this to Bigfoot. So why don't we do that just so we can mix things up and not have the lightning rod too much. Of course, I did hit that one wedge. I've already done one Bigfoot so far. So it'd be nice to get this into a Bigfoot range. And maybe we could even do a Spectra, just so you guys can see a little bit of everything. So you can see this is down right towards Min Spectra, straight in the face again. So this is a perfect candidate for Bigfoot. Of course, with that being said, I probably would have stuck personally with lightning rod. But we're going to do Bigfoot only because I just don't have enough in this stream for you guys on Bigfoot. I really like lightning rod. There's almost anything in a headwind, definitely easier to adjust for me personally, because I just know how much it's going to roll out. And I want it to come in a little bit hotter so it doesn't stop on the front lip. So that's the primary reason. As to the why, I would use lightning rod in this situation 10 out of 10 times. But this is the one exception. Just to give you guys a little bit more Bigfoot content. Because realistically, it doesn't matter. The club doesn't matter. If you had enough game knowledge, you would be able to do it with all of these. And here you'll see, all we'll need to do is we'll need to come down here. 4 rings is going to be about where I need to pull. So I need to make sure that I have enough. So I need to use the right amount. So this is actually not a perfect Bigfoot example. And the reason that you're seeing why is because I'm not even going to be able to go full backspin, because I'm going to be right at max club. But what we're going to do is we're going to back off the top spin, try to get this to just run out just a touch. 5 backspin. That should roll through just a touch. With a 4 wind. 4 wind's kind of small. We're going to do headwind. And of course, we're going to be down 4 rings for max. So it's going to basically just give me the max adjustment, 406. Which is essentially 1-to-1. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put the button back here just to give you guys a nice line that we'll use. I think a slight overpull in this case might not hurt. I am still a little bit worried about this coming up just a tad bit short. So there's a trick to making sure that you always pull the shot circle. So before you move your screen, make sure that the target moves. And I didn't do it there. See, that's where the target moved. And you see, I'm going to actually have to go into power. So with power, I'm actually going to take off just a touch of this. I'm going to change it to about maybe here. And then I'm also going to pull just a little bit over. So not quite the center of the shot circle, because it would have been, it might have been short otherwise. But you're also seeing the left edge instead of in the cup. So I needed to just go just a little bit more to the right. And the reason why is because, keep in mind, you're not doing full backspin, you're doing half, and then a little bit of overpower, so there's extra wind. So since it was slightly pointed to the left, you miss on the left edge. So just a little bit off there, but you get the gist, and that's really the most important thing. The biggest thing for me is just giving you guys the tools to make sure that you're good on your own. And you can see with these work-throughs, you're not going to struggle. You might not get all the drops, but you're going to be right there every time. And that's kind of the main goal here. So why don't we go up to Spectra this time? And usually it's about right in here on the screen. And the reason, let me reiterate this. You can see the pin, it's right on the edge of my right of my screen. I know that it's about the 3/4 point of my screen is where Spectra is. So we'll do this, and really the only reason is to just show you guys Spectra. I wouldn't naturally by default do Spectra here. So you don't have to read too much into why I'm doing this, other than just so you guys have just another perspective. Yeah, the Bigfoot, it's kind of the same for me because, and here's the reason that I'm weak with Bigfoot is because I love lightning rods so much. In that situation, there's no way I would have used Bigfoot. Absolutely zero way. Because it was straight into the wind, which means that it's set up for low spin. You could see with that last attempt that I just made, it could have just as easily stopped on the front lip. And here's where lightning rod's so great. When you're only using 3 or 4 backspin, it's going to roll through. And once you start to memorize the guide and how it's supposed to look into the hole, it's going to come through with just enough speed. You're never going to stop them short. So that's one of the reasons, especially for that wind. The only way that I would have pulled Bigfoot out, like if I absolutely had to there, would have been tailwind. So any tailwind, it would have been Bigfoot. But any headwind, it would have been lightning rod, no question. So if you're not playing your game like that, you're probably a little bit off on your assessment with how you should be playing. Now, I think there probably is maybe just a couple circumstances. There's always going to be an exception. But I would say as a general rule of thumb, that's a good that's a good. And here you can see, I'm right at the max club line. Just gave myself just enough room just in case I needed it. And the only way that I estimated it, so I estimated with no grid, it's just game knowledge. And this is the reason that the guys that are at the top are so good, is just because they just know that. They don't need the grids to do it. They just know this is where I need to put the ball. And there's a lot of tips and similar ways to get the ball to this situation. So you don't need to use anything fancy to make this happen. It just needed some prep work is basically the gist of it. So here we're about 2.5 rings for max. There's gonna be some ball guide compression here, so I'm gonna make sure that we get behind the hole. I'm also gonna put a little bit of left spin so it doesn't, so the wind doesn't change my ball guide too much. So here you're gonna see that it's gonna be coming back straight toward the hole. The wind is pointed so much to the right that it's gonna probably come back a little bit to the right. So this is kind of the goal of my land here. And this is about 2.5 rings for max. So we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna switch this to this, and then we're gonna do 3.9, and then we're gonna do, right towards 2.5. You're gonna see it's essentially right at the max line, 4.7. So 4.7 here. the more exacting that you can pull on that, but you can also see that my ball guide, it's kind of intentionally offset. So I need to do one of two things here. I either need to overpull intentionally, or I need to just offset my ball guide. And you can see I'm kind of opting for that option. And the reason being why is because the wind, it's so pointed to the right that I know that there's going to be dramatic effect and a significant change to the deflecting of the ball here. I'm also pulling higher ground, so I even think 4-7 here could be just a tad light. Just a tad. But the outside ring here is the larger. So it is the white ring, which is a little bit larger. So with that being said, it might be okay. But of course, I don't have anything exact to use here for my measurement, but I'm thinking somewhere, I did it again. Just getting lazy. So always make sure that you've pulled the white thing before actually pulling. You'll avoid that little offset error. As you saw, I did. But this is right in the 4-7, 4-8 range. We know it's close. You know, it might be a little bit light. I'm worried that this is just maybe going to miss right edge. But let's just see. No, it's actually to the left. So I think I was pulling more towards 4-8 there because I knew I kind of needed to overpull, and I probably should have just left it. I should have left it be and did 4.66, 4.7. We would have been spot on. I kind of talked myself into overcorrection there. And of course, anything that's a tailwind, the biggest thing with the tailwind here is always going to be the high wind reducer ball. So this, you know, 75% ball. You definitely want something in the 70s. Keep this wind down as much as possible. Also keep in mind, maybe if it was in the 80s, the difference between 70 and 80 here is significant because you're talking about maybe pulling down into this bunker versus pulling right here. It's a game changer of a difference. The less that you have to pull down to low ground, the easier it is to hole out, for sure. So this would be an example of a situation with a tailwind where you use your best ball possible. Of course, I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to stick with this because these are easily to replicate. But you'll see that I'm kind of keeping the ball guide through the hole a little bit, knowing that it's going to land short. And I either need ball guide. So you remember the first hole I played where it just kind of stretched out, but I pulled the lower ground, so it landed short. You need to factor in both those things. So it's going to land short, but there's also going to be ball guide expansion. And which one takes precedence? It just comes from experience more than anything, and also the grade of the slope plays a definite factor. And since I can keep this up on the fringe, it's definitely going to help that you don't have to pull it down into the bunker. And that's what makes this a little bit more holeable. But what we're going to do is we'll keep this right on plane. Maybe just a little bit of left spin here. Just a touch. And let's just see what we're looking at here. 3-6. Go back up to this one. Of course, right at the max line. 3-4. So the only thing that you might see here that I do is maybe pull just a little bit inside angle. And when I mean inside angle, I'm talking like a little bit more left pointed like this versus outside angle, which is pointed this way. And the reason that I do that is because of this elevation drop off. It helps you from missing to the right, because you'll see in winds like this a lot where guys just miss to the right. Or the alternative, let's say the wind gets up to like a 7 and then they just miss to the left because of the wind effect. It's going to be less wind effect on mine. It's going to be more of an overpull because of pulling to the lower ground. So that's the reason that I'll pull the inside angle here. So let's keep that like that. 3-4. Of course, 3-4. We're going to do our best estimate at that at kind of right there. And still missed just a tad to the right. And that's the reason. Also a little bit long. Same rationale as to why. You can see the one that wins out that battle there. And if I was playing a little bit more regularly, I would have known this, that the tailwind had precedence over just moving down to the fringe there, which means that you need to pull the ball guide back just a little bit heavier. But you can see, on hole 1, where I played that very first one, when I left it short, I essentially just kind of overcorrected just because we had a very similar situation where I was pulling down and I wanted to kind of find a happy medium. But obviously, I need a little bit more work on that pull, but you see we're in the ballpark. We give a good effort there, and I'm sure, you guys can easily fine tune that with being able to just, because, it's kind of exactly how I mentioned, how I was just going to land a fraction to the right. But the one thing that I did just kind of underpredict there was the intensity that the wind was going to. And, another thing that might have actually contributed, which I've never played that hole yet, it might have landed to an uphill green. And if it did land to an uphill green, the ball guide's going to kind of intensify the way that it stretches out. And I haven't played that hole enough to know, but what it reminded me of, that setup, it almost reminded me exactly of that one that we play. I'm trying to think of that course. It used to be that one that was in like Tour 9, that Torrey Pines 9, I think. That's exactly what that hole reminded me of, to where it kind of like lands on an upslope a little bit. And that hole landing on an upslope, it definitely makes the ball guide expand a little bit more. On top of that, it also makes the short irons and long irons land a little bit short. So that could be another contributing factor as to why I landed just a tad bit right there. So my ring pull could have been just a little bit over, and I needed to just stretch that ball guide out more. But just something to think about. Let's take a look at this one. Let's see here. Do you guys have any additional questions that you feel inclined to ask here? Trying to see here, par 5. We got this is easily going to get up to Bigfoot. I could probably get another Spectra. So why don't we do that with the tailwind? We'll just take another look at Spectra. Since I only have one Spectra shot on this stream, we'll try to do one more. Of course, the only thing I'm worried about, a lot of these winds, the first direction has kind of dictated the second direction. So I'm wondering if the developers, they just kind of went back to this algorithm where, wind 1 kind of is like wind 2, because I've been seeing that a lot more. And I know for a while they were going away from it, but they might have came back to it. And I'm really not sure of the answer to that. I don't play nearly enough. But this is going to be another really, really difficult shot. Sometimes what I try to do is kind of overhook this wind, kind of like this, where you see I'm bringing it back to the right. And the reason being is because I know it's just going to cut. With a tailwind here, it's just going to stop on a dime. So you can see how I'm overplaying it to the right. I know it's not actually going to do that. The ball guide's going to stretch out, and then it's probably just going to stop straight. So the right hook keeps it from like bouncing to the left, which is what I don't want. I don't want this ball to bounce to the left because it essentially makes it unholdable if it does, because it's sloping to the right. So you want it to still come in from the right. And that's kind of what I'm trying to predict here. So that looks pretty good. Of course, the biggest thing here for me is going to be expansion. And of course, what is that? 2-3 rings for max. So let's try that. Four, 1. And you're going to see that this is going to be a huge, huge drop off into this bunker here. And the fact that it's dropping off so significantly, main reason I'm definitely going to push up about a ring here. So obviously I pushed up just a little bit too much aggressively there. You could see, you know, the way that it cut came in towards the hole spot on. It did really a lot what I wanted. I still wanted it to take a little bit of that right break, which it was doing. And that's the reason for such an intense right spin there, is because I didn't want it to bounce straight. That's exactly what I told you I didn't want. So I made sure to do just a little bit of extra to the right to make sure that it actually had a chance to cut down into the hole. Biggest issue there is just trying to factor in the elevation drop off into the bunker and trying to get just the right amount. Of course, the tailwinds are very difficult. And of course, the Spectra, it's going to be a very difficult club. I wouldn't naturally set up for Spectra in that situation. But if I found myself in Spectra range, of course, I want to be able to try to make it. But ideally, you want to set up for a Bigfoot there so it stops more on a dime. But the only other factor is, you know, would you be able to land it on the green and still stop it in front of the pin with a long iron? That I'm not even sure, because I haven't even played that hole other than this one time. So here is the 9th hole. We are going to set ourselves up. Why don't, I mean, I feel like this is a back pin. This is a good situation for us to try to hold this. So why don't we try to do so? And we'll just try to land this right around here. Teeing off with Hellfire. And even hooking it to the right. So the goal here is to bring this with the lightning rod, because there's plenty of green to work with. So that's more or less the goal. So that's out of club, which is going to be perfect. So let's go here. We go lightning rod. Back to the 10%. Lightning rod here. And this is the type of wind that you definitely want. And if you remember, we had a similar one like this where I did Bigfoot intentionally just to get you guys a little more of the content. But this is the type of wind that you will hold Bigfoot out. Or the lightning rod, sorry. Versus, and this is kind of exactly what I want to see. I want to see that ball guide, especially on the 7, going just a little bit through the hole. I do want to kind of tilt just a little bit to counter this wind. Take a little bit of the break like that. And this was what, right around 15 or so rings? 13 to 15, somewhere in there. So almost 10 exactly. You can see I got the ball guide going just a little bit through the hole. It's going to keep it from, so it is going to check up a little bit with the ball guide compression. Let's pull down here. Go right here. We're going to go right on 10 rings here. 9, 9, 10, 0. It's definitely right in the ballpark of what we're looking for. Sure enough, there it is. So we end on a high note. Like I was mentioning, you know, that one where we had that similar wind, this is what you're expecting, especially once you get a little bit more seasoned, a little bit more well-versed with the club. Anytime that you see that wind, you just expect to make it. And that's basically the level that you want to get yourself to. It's to the point that you feel confident enough with a wind like that, that you can basically just go very aggressive, roll it right into the cup. Because that's a very, and that's the main reason that I don't like Bigfoot in that situation, is because I don't want it stopping on the lip, and I know lightning rod's not. I know I'm bringing it into the hole, and as long as I have it into the center, you know, it's not jumping the cup, because it's just going to check up nice. Yep, no worries, guys. If you have, is there any other questions that you guys have? We did finish the set here. You guys are seeing how rare it is that I log into this. So, you know, we're just kind of going through. There is going to be some new ring values for you guys, especially with max bags. So keep in mind, these changes, they're pretty much going to be, they're going to focus on like Hellfire 5, Hellfire 6, Hellfire 7. Of course, we didn't even get into it for this set. Apparently, there's no wood shots on the, was that Bay Hill only? I'm trying to even think. No, it wasn't. There was two, there must have been 2 courses there. Because I know we played, what was it, the Fire, is it Rand Park or something? So it was like a split between those two, but none of the par 5s were aggressive to where, like, everything you could go for. There was not a single situation where you couldn't get aggressive. So that's kind of the goal, is, you know, you want to take advantage of those situations, be able to definitely drop low numbers, and, you know, especially with the more that you practice, the more that you rehearse, the more that you understand these concepts. And of course, like I mentioned, you know, just keep in mind, I'm a little bit out of practice. So the biggest issue is for me right now, a lot of those drop-offs, but also a lot of the ball guide. So you'll see my ring adjustment, it's pretty good. The biggest issue that I had in this set was just ball guide expansion. You know, is it gonna contract a little bit more? Is it gonna expand a little bit more? And just keep in mind that it'll get there if you essentially just analyze everything that you do, be very particular and meticulous with your adjusting. Keep in mind, I did all this without a grid too. So it doesn't require a grid for you to go super low. Yes, it's very helpful, and it'll definitely help you with alignment, but there's other resources, and essentially focusing on those green pixelating. Of course, I could have zoomed in super hard and just got a little bit more aggressive. But I'm assuming everybody here kind of already knows that, but you just read in the threads, just like the ignorant grid comments, and it's just like, you just can't believe that these guys are just as aggressive and obnoxious as they are. So anyway, just, you know, you guys do you. If you guys have some feedback or anything you want to give me, and of course, if you want to see me some more this weekend, I qualified for this tournament, I'll be more than happy to come back if you guys are, you know, up for it. So just let me know, and good luck out there. Let me know how it goes, and see you guys next time. Take care.